What the fox is up, you internet junkies? I am the Facts Fox, and in this episode, could Bob Barker actually be dead from a cracked skull? Was there a morgue employee who had 3,000 severed penises in his house? And is Apple slowing down your older model iPhones to increase sales of the new ones? Join me as I follow these stories down the rabbit hole. Alright, here we are at the Facts Fox desk, ready to get going with the first story. But before we get into that, I just want to thank you guys for joining me on my first episode. It's going to be a little bit of a rough ride, but I'm sure we'll get through it together, and it'll be greener pastures on the other side. So, our first story today is Bob Barker, the host of The Price is Right, dead at the age of 94. We're going to find out. You guys should be able to see what I'm seeing if you just look right there. You'll notice that I am using Snopes for my fact checking. I know they've come under heat recently, but I still think they're a reliable source for most of the fact checking that I'm going to do. So for the first part of the series, I am going to be using Snopes a lot. I am up for suggestions, and I do look at other sources, so let me know what you think, and if you have other sources that you think I should be using instead of Snopes for my fact checking, I'd be happy to take a look at them and maybe feature them in future episodes. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Is former Price is Right host Bob Barker dead at age 94? Let's find out here. So the claim, the Price is Right host Bob Barker died in July 2017 after falling and hitting his head at his home. Now, I know this story is from July 2017, but I've seen it in my social threads recently, and I feel like it's going to resurface with the death of Hugh Hefner. So I'm doing this story just to put it out there, and because I think it is still relevant even though it's a couple months old at this point. So we'll get right into the story here. It was originally published by Action News 3. Sounds like a real reputable source. And let's just go over the little excerpts they've got here from the Action News 3 story. This should be good. Bob Barker was rushed to the emergency room after a fall that split his head open. Several hours later, he was pronounced dead. The 94-year-old former The Price is Right host suffered a nearly 2-inch laceration on the side of his forehead due to a fall that took place near the star's Hollywood Hills home. Bob was taking a walk at around 10:30 a.m. near his Hollywood Hills home when he tripped on the sidewalk, police reported. Police administered aid and called the paramedics. Barker was then taken to Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 12:34 p.m. It's quite the story, Action News 3. Too bad it wasn't correct. It was actually fake news, if you hadn't guessed that already. That doesn't stop people from seeing it, reacting to that emotion of loss from seeing somebody that they grew up with and grew up watching on TV, seeing that they are dead. They had to share it around. That's how these things get around and become almost like reality. Not to mention that the posts that do get shared around are clickbait titles that are meant to elicit emotion from you and get you to share it without clicking through and actually reading the story. So the story probably comes from June 2017 when People magazine reported that Barker had taken a fall at his home. In that article, People reported that Bob Barker is on the mend after falling and hitting his head at home last week. A rep for the former Price is Right host confirms to People that Barker, 93, not 94, sought medical treatment after his fall last week in his Hollywood Hills home. In his home, not on a walk near his home. According to his rep, his housekeeper drove him to the hospital, and he was brought home a few hours later when it was determined that he had no serious injuries. Action News 3 took it upon themselves to take this story and run with it, blow it way out of proportion, and make it another fake news story. They were spread around by social media posts like these ones. Not Bob Barker, a pillar of my childhood, carried a Price is Right lunchbox in elementary school. R.I.P. Damn, man. R.I.P. Bob Barker. And Sam Shepard and Bob Barker on the same day? Who's next? And you can see that these were shared around a little bit by other people, retweeted, commented on, and liked. Luckily, this one was only commented on and not retweeted and liked at all. But now you know, if you do see this running around your social media channels, just ignore it. Or even grab the link to this article in the description of this video and post it on your social media to let them know that they're sharing fake news. So with that story out of the way, let's jump right into our next story. Okay, now that we're done with the first story and we all know Bob Barker is alive and well, we can jump into the second story. FBI seizes over 3,000 penises during raid of morgue employee's home. That's a lot of penises. Why you would need that many penises, I have no clue. Let's take a look at the story. So, the FBI supposedly seized 3,000 penises during a September 2017 raid of a morgue employee's home. That's the story. You can see down below alleged picture of this employee of the morgue. I don't know about you guys. Doesn't look like he's someone you would expect to see working at a morgue. He looks more like, I don't know, crackhead. So apparently on the 27th of September 2017, World News Daily reported that FBI agents made an astonishing discovery this morning while executing a search warrant at the residence of a Houston mortician. They found 3,178 embalmed human penises. The Federal Bureau of Investigation suspected 54-year-old Dave Murray, an employee of the Harris County Morgue, of being implicated in an organ trafficking network. You have 3,178 clients that need penises? Or is it just one client that needs 3,178 penises? That's still a lot of penises, no matter what you look at it. How could you possibly need that many? Right there, story starts to fall apart. Starts to fall apart even more when you realize that the World News Daily Report is a well-known satirical news website. They even have a disclaimer on the site that says, World News Daily Report assumes all responsibility for the satirical nature of its articles and for the fictional nature of their content. All characters appearing in the articles in this website, even those based on real people, are entirely fictional, and any resemblance between them and any person, living, dead, or undead, is purely a miracle. So this site, known for putting out fake news stories, this stuff gets shared around and becomes urban legend, if you will, from people who just read the headline, think it's funny, and share it around. So this is not a true story, obviously. The mugshot itself isn't even of a morgue employee. This is something you might have seen if you ever look at those outrageous mugshot videos. This is actually a gentleman named Eric Batchelor. He was arrested in 2011 for violating his parole and has nothing to do with being a mortician or working at a morgue. So this story is false from top to bottom. Not a bit of it is even close to true. And the only reason it ends up on social media is because people see the headline, they think it's funny, and they share it around without actually reading the article or looking at the source of the article. So if you do see this floating around your social media, now you know it's not true. And now we can get into our final story. Okay, so 2 stories down, 1 more to go, and this is the featured story for this first episode. Did a study prove that Apple slows down iPhones to boost sales of new ones? That is the question of this story, and I'm sure all of you iPhone users out there are wondering if this is true. So let's dive right into the story and take a look. So the claim is a Harvard study had proved that Apple is deliberately slowing down the older model iPhones to increase the sales of newer models. Now, this is a story that's been around for some time. It resurfaced recently on the 21st of September this year, 2017. And it's actually been around since about 2014. It's even been featured on the Netflix series, The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which you can see in the screenshot. It's comes around almost every time a new Apple phone is being released. This time around, a blog that alleged a Harvard study had proved once and for all that Apple was slowing down the older phones. So the blog post kind of accuses Apple of using these underhanded sales tactics without providing any real proof. The only proof that they have is the link to this Harvard study that was done in 2014. What's ridiculous about this Harvard study, which is outlined in this article, is that it just analyzed the worldwide data on Google Trends for the term iPhone slow. So they noticed that when an iPhone was coming out, a new iPhone, that there was a dramatic increase in this search term on Google Trends, which they correlated with meaning that Apple was slowing down their iPhones. Now, this is absolutely ridiculous. So the blog post goes on to quote that New York Times writer Senthil Mullainathan, I hope I didn't butcher that name too much, a professor of economics at Harvard, described the results as striking. Now that was a complete misquote. He didn't exactly call it striking. That was taken out of context. He really referred to it as a graduate student's casual experiment using Google Trends. He goes on to explain all the things that were wrong with this and why it really doesn't prove anything, and especially doesn't prove that Apple is slowing down their iPhones. Now he's got a really well put explanation for this, and basically it's that iPhones may just seem like they're slower as they become more bloated with the software that you download, or that the newer models come out that are faster. It makes you feel like your phone is slower. So it's more so a psychological thing. And since that psychological thing is happening and you're seeing that new phone come out, you search for iPhone slowed because you feel like your phone is slower. At least that's how Mullainathan explains it. And again, I'm hoping that I'm not butchering that name too much. This is a years old clickbait title. It's re-released in September with the new iPhone release, and I'm sure we'll see it again the next time an iPhone is released. Just know that it's fake news, and you shouldn't believe it at all. Apple is not slowing down your iPhone, despite how it might feel. It's just not something that's happening. So, no Harvard study proves that Apple is slowing down your iPhone. It was just a Harvard graduate student's little experiment. It really proved nothing, and Apple is not deliberately slowing down your older iPhone. It may just seem that way because it is an older model and it's not as fast as the newer ones using the newer technology. Alright, now you know the truth. All three stories told, all three stories false. So, to wrap things up, let's head over to the den. Okay, so Bob Barker is not dead. He is alive and well. For now. And there's no guy with 3,000 penises in his house that we know of. And Apple isn't slowing down their older model phones to increase the sales of new ones. It just feels that way. Don't forget to put your paws on that subscribe button, like and comment on this video to let me know what you think about the show, give me suggestions for future episodes, or if you just hate my face and want to let me know about it. Until next time, I'm the Fax Fox saying, Fox off.